until we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from.
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
We struggled, we had to strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Good morning. Thank you everyone for joining us here on Global Television. Feels great back here again. I'm Uyag Mofwebe with a delight welcoming you to this edition of Global Morning. I hope it's been a great week for you. Made the most of it, whether it's work, time with family, relaxing, and what have you. I'm sure that's the reason the conversation around work-life balance has never been more timely and salient to have. But then we are working now. It's a Sunday morning, no doubt about that, but it's also an amazing opportunity to talk about big issues around our country, and some of them actually beyond Nigeria. For many people, there's no bigger conversation, no bigger concern at this point in time than the fuel subsidy removal issue, which of course many believe has led to the petrol crisis that the country is now dealing with. I mean, your darling Global Television took out time, putting a lot of resources in the course of the week that was, to also look at many of these issues from a wide range of angles, whether from the perspective of the everyday Nigerian who needs fuel to power their cars, their machines for industrial purposes, or just to, well, power their generators at home for residential needs and all of that. Of course, we also talk to those who are key players in the sector who understand the nitty-gritty, the politics and the economics associated with the ONG sector. All right, but then it just goes ahead to show that we are no longer where we used to be now, particularly knowing that by Thursday, it was already confirmed and official that the NNPC would now sell fuel for upwards of 1,000 naira per litre. Yes, 1,000 naira per litre, all the way from about 897 naira that it had been sold at prior to that time. In some states, it's as high as 1,075 naira. Edo, for example. All right, so that shows to you that the upward review of the pump price of petrol is not only something critical or crucial at this point, it has also become a source of pain and injury, so to speak, for many Nigerians. Of course, people have been speaking out. Citizens have spoken out about this issue. They've expressed their concerns in a variety of ways. Opposition party leaders have also come out to express their position on these matters. Peter Obi, for example, has said that this upward review of the price of petrol, particularly by the NNPC, is going to be more of a basis to inflict injury, to inflict pain and hardship on Nigerians, and we see that happen to finances of Nigerians right now. People hardly are able to move the way they used to. It has to be extremely important for them to even leave their houses. Work, for example. There is a Sunday, there are people who will go to church, not because they suddenly have lost touch with their faith, but on account of the fact that they either can't afford it altogether or are trying to prioritize in such a way that going to church today won't be a reason not to show up at work tomorrow. Of course, you know how irresponsible that would sound. So it's for many persons right now, in terms of their experience, in terms of the reality they are dealing with, being between a rock and a hard place. Of course, we know both of them are as tough as they come. But before now, President Bola Tinubu has told Nigerians and he has given reassurances that, look, this phase of our lives as a nation, as a people, and as a government is just the worst of it. It can't get any worse than these. As a matter of fact, Nigerians should look forward to better days. That this is the worst it can get. But it appears not to be the case right now, because at that point when Nigerians feel, okay, we're settling in gradually, as painful as it has been, and then there's another development in that regard. For those now calling for a reversal, like the Labour organized labor. That is, for instance, is that possible? Is it realistic? Is it something that the government of President Bola Tinubu will do? Because the handlers of the president's information strategy mechanism have said that this is an issue of, market forces, all right, taking charge. They say market forces are in play. That's the reason you're finding all of these issues playing out the way they are. And as such, the presidents or governments, under, of course, the leadership of President Bola Tinubu, cannot intervene at this point. And that raises the concern about the Dangote factor. How much of, if you like, relief has it brought to Nigerians as far as availability and pricing of fuel are concerned? We'll talk about all of these after the short break. But first of all, we'll go bring you the papers now. Let's turn to our dailies today. Of course, is the 13th day in the month of October 2024. Let's begin with the Leadership Sunday. It's just starts with a headline adjacent the nameplate, okay, on the Leadership Sunday. Says Nigeria ranks 5th globally in food insecurity as inflation bites harder. All of those details are with you on page 14 of the Leadership Sunday today. If you move away from that, a special report on Gowon at 90, an extraordinary life. Of course, there are many timelines, milestones, and very critical developments in this country to which you can always tie General Yakubu Gowon retired. All right. Of course, you can't tell the history of Nigeria and not have reasons to cycle back in terms of references again and again and again to him regarding the development of this country. So, General Yakubu Gowon retired. He's 90, and this is a milestone in the life of a man whom some people say has seen it all. All right, so let's look ahead at headlines for you this morning on the Leadership Sunday. Unemployment crisis must be reversed, says Shettima, that's the Vice President. Of course, if you look at other headlines, he had talked about how that this government, under the leadership of President Bola Tinubu, will empower Nigerian youth with competitive skills. Of course, he's making an apparent reference to skills that can be deployed anywhere in the world in light of 21st century realities. But then there's the star story on the front page of the Leadership Sunday for you this morning. Leadership, LG polls, governors making mockery of democracy. That's opposition parties. That's the interesting thing about opposition parties, because if you look at one state, let's say a state in the southeast conducting its own local government election, the opposition there will complain and say that the ruling party, of course, under the leadership of the governor of that state, has taken all the local government, has won all the local governments. They call it sweeping victory. However, conversely, in another state, perhaps in another region, sometimes in that same region of the country, a different party wins altogether. The same party that has lost in the other one wins now, and then the one that won loses, and you see the back and forth. One person is crying foul in one state, in that same region, another party is celebrating victory. But again, these elections across the state where we have seen local government polls conducted, of course, we know we have some up ahead of us from now to the end of year, have come to bring to the surface the weak links, so to speak, in our democratic processes, particularly as it has to do with our electioneering, because it has to be a ground-up approach to how we provide leadership, whether within political parties or beyond. However, it also means that those states' independent electoral commissions, all right, which many persons have said are tied to the apron string of governors, must be made to be truly independent in the real sense of the word. Because first of all, it is the governor who appoints the chairman of these independent electoral commissions. Therefore, as it is in the case of Nigeria, it is naturally expected that this chairman will have loyalty and allegiance to no other person, no other entity than the state governors. All right. Of course, you know what they say about he who pays the piper. This headline has two riders with it. The first one says, electoral commissions declare winners without elections. CSOs differ on retention, scrapping of CX. Again, that's another issue. Where do we go from here? Some have called for INEC to be the umpire as well for grassroots elections. In other words, they should conduct elections for local governments. All right. But INEC is dealing with a whole lot. Some people say INEC is biting more than it can chew already with the challenge of conducting both national general election and off-grid election cycles. We just had one in Edo on the 21st of this month, less than a month ago. We have another one coming up in Ondo in about a few weeks on the 5th of November. All right, so INEC already has a lot on its plate. That's the point. Therefore, will it make sense? This is an open-ended question. Will it make sense to add more to INEC's already spilling plates? All right. So it's an issue of whether or not governors are ready to strengthen democracy, whether governors understand and believe in the rule of law and are ready to commit to it beyond the rhetorics that we hear every now and then. Okay, if you look at the left side of the front page of today's issue of the leadership, it says Borno flood victims beg for reconstruction of damaged homes. Quite a sad development there. Fuel price increase, how FG can lessen burden on Nigerians, that's according to stakeholders. Defamation, T.Y. Danjuma threatens cleric with 1 billion naira suits. Last but not least is a headline here that has a picture of former governor of Rivers State and former minister of transportation, Rotimi Chibuike Amechi. He says FG warns Amechi against inciting citizens. Now, if you follow the news in the course of the week, you probably are aware that the former governor of Rivers State has said, look, he is disappointed. In fact, he's angry that Nigerians are not protesting against bad leadership and bad leaders. So other politicians, particularly those of the APC stock, have come against him, and we are now hearing that even the federal government is warning him against inciting citizens. But if you have been familiar over time with the Amechi rhetorics, you realize that this is not the first time he would make such a statement. Even while he was governor, he did say things like this. As Minister of Transportation under the government, under the leadership of former President Muhammadu Buhari, he had also said similar things, and so this is really not coming up for the first time. But then let's go to the Sunday Independent for the first time this morning. Quite a number of stories, some of them very disturbing, as is always the case. We begin with stories above the nameplate for you this morning. FG to collaborate with Zamfara to harness mineral wealth, boost economic growth. That's top left corner of the Sunday Independent. What else? One with a picture of Governor Lucky Ayedatiwa, that's the governor of Ondo State. It says Ayedatiwa denies PDP use of Democracy Park. Fadaka alleges the church can be political without being partisan. Bishop Ajose is the one to whom that headline is credited. The church can be political without being partisan. Okay, we know of a church, a very mega church in Nigeria, that actually started some political directorates in the build-up to the 2023 general election. So we've seen churches actually get involved in politics one way or another to, varying degrees, depending on denomination in particular. But the point Bishop Ajosa is making is churches can be involved in politics without being partisan. All right, that's the church, he says. Okay, turmoil in opposition. Inside story of stakeholders battle to rescue PDP. This morning, we realized that the PDP narrative is replicated by way of headlines across several news dailies today. Okay, but here one with a picture of President Bola Tinubu, who we understand is currently enjoying his vacation abroad. He has left the United Kingdom for France, and people came to rail against him, particularly across social media platforms. And now Bayo Onanuga, who happens to be special advisor to the president on information and strategy, says, look, you guys don't have to break a sweat over this. The president is a Nigerian, is a citizen, and he has the rights, especially given that this is his vacation. It's a private time for him. So he decides where he spends it. Therefore, if he decides to leave the UK for France, he's within his right, and nobody should have sleepless nights over that. Well, for the big story, you can see pictures of former vice president, who happens to be former presidential candidate of the PDP, that's the People's Democratic Party, in the last general election, Atiku Abubakar. And then you have a picture of the controversial Nyesom Wike, the FCT minister. And then there's that of the embattled interim national chairman of the PDP, now said to be suspended by faction of the party's NWC, talking about Ilyasu Damago. And then, of course, you have a picture of the man we are told has now declared his seats vacant, all right, the national secretary of the party. So it's quite a potpourri of problems for the People's Democratic Party. Every political party at every point in time has its own fair share of troubles, all right? But for a party that's supposed to lead the opposition pack and then, of course, hopefully regain power, or as politicians say, recapture power in 2027, it's too much of trouble, maybe one trouble too many for that party. And then another headline here with a picture of the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission talking about Olu Korede here. It says EFCC in the dark as lawyers seek reform of anti-graft body. The writer says critics decry commission's excesses, lawlessness. You find those on page 5 of the Sunday Independent. Okay. CACO petitions NJC, says courts orders hindering anti-corruption work. The writer tells us 16 to monitor judges' actions. And then on the foot of the Sunday Independent, and bad governance movement says a recent fuel price hike provocative, vexatious. All right, you can read that up on page 7. All of the details are with you on page 7 of the Sunday Independent. All right, we have the daily, the Sunday Punch as well for you. So let's turn to the Sunday Punch now and take a look at what the big stories are. But first, let's begin with the ones above the nameplate. One here has the picture of Africa's richest man and the founder and chairman of the Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote. It says Dangote crude oil production begins 2025. That's according to official. 17 Nigerians register for evacuation from Lebanon. That story has a picture of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, all right, talking about Ambassador Yusuf Tugar. Okay, there was a big story here. How governors, LG chairman entered deals to bypass order on local government funds. How governors, LG chairman entered deals to bypass order on council funds. The writer here says LG bosses forced to collude with governors out of fear All right, that's according to AGON, Association of Local Governments of Nigeria. Those details are on page 3 for you if you pick up a copy of the Sunday Punch. Okay. Ondo PDP APC big over campaign venue again has a picture of the governor Ayedatiwa. All right, 50% subsidy on electricity tariff yet to start. VCs, those are vice chancellors of universities, whom we understand beaten very hard by these band A, band B factor, right? Police hunt cultists for killing Ogun councillorship candidates inside Nigeria's daycare system where caregivers drug staff kids. I regret some things I did in Big Brother's house. That's Ruthie, for those of you who follow Big Brother Nigeria show, and if you're particularly a fan of Ruthie. So your favorite now is spilling the bean on how she regrets some things she did while in the Big Brother's house. All right. State House Medical Center battles staff shortage. Okay, the same State House Medical Center, former president's wife told us, didn't even have basics like analgesics and syringes. All right, at the point. So is either we find a lasting solution to these problems, to just put an end to this embarrassment once and for all, or we'll probably think about what else to do with the State House Clinic. But of course, there has to be a State House Clinic, no doubt about that. Before we take a break, everyone, let's take a look at the Sunday Telegraph for you. All right, we have a report, by the way, just a short report that focuses on population. That is world population, what it means for socio-economic development across countries. All right, we'll play you that when we take a break shortly. But let's look at the Sunday Telegraph in the meantime. All right, so the big story, Pat Utomi is tragic. 80-year-olds ruling Nigeria lack ideas. That's on pages 3, 14 and 19. Has a quote from it here. It says, at a critical period in Nigeria's history, Gowon constituted a cabinet of national reconciliation, unity, and war cabinet. He brought antagonists like Obafemi Awolowo and Joseph Taka, Shagari Ali, Mongolo, Karia Arigbo. All of these political gladiators came together and Nigeria began to forge a way forward. The question is, decades down the line, I mean, the Civil War ended in 1969. This is 24. So do the maths. You're looking at several decades, all right? So that means that at the end of the day, you're looking at some 55 years after. Have we learned anything from that Gowon example? Apparently, that's one of the several crucial points that political economist Professor Pat Utomi is making with his delivery on today's issue of the Telegraph newspaper. All right, so let's not go into all of those details. So let's look at some other headlines for you from the Sunday Telegraph. Barracks demolition, Lagos landlords rejecting us, say policemen. We are now sending our families home. So read that pathetic story on page 5 of the Sunday Telegraph. 2024 licensing round, NUPRC rules foreign investors, says it's a game changer for Nigeria's oil gas sector. EFCC declares oil mogul Akindoro wanted over alleged fraud. And then the big story, mega party, ex-APC governors, ADC, LP, PDP factions meet towards end. 3 riders. 2 governors from East, 3 from North involved. Disgruntled APC members plot Tinubu's fall in 2027. PDP shops for consensus candidates ahead NEC meeting. We understand towards the leadership of the party, that is the national chairmanship in particular. You have 2 people, for example, from Benue already having a tussle over who becomes the chairman of the lead opposition party, that is the PDP. So that battle is basically between former Senate President David Mark and former governor of Benue State, talking about Gabriel Suswan. Incidentally, these are 2 Benue boys, so to speak. All right, but experts will tell you, I mean, those who follow politics a lot will tell you, it's obvious the reason these two gentlemen are vying to become the chairman of the People's Democratic Party, and that they say is on account of the fact that the argument, which many claim is valid, is that the next chairman of the PDP has got to come from the North Central. But again, let's keep in mind, there are a few other states from the North Central, all right? You have Nasarawa, for example, all right, that's North Central. So you have a few of these other states from the North Central. There's Kogi, for instance. So what do you say to these other states from the North Central? There's Plateau, all right? So let's be careful, there's Taraba. So these are states from the North Central. Basically, the point is the PDP's battles are not ending so soon because there are other factions that supports for the chairmanship to go to other zones in the country. Some even say Northeast, others say Northwest. But some PDP members say, look, it has to be from the North Central if justice and fairness and, of course, equity have to prevail and become the guiding lights in this embattled political party. All right, so two more headlines, maybe three from the Sunday Telegraph before we take a break now. Shetima, LG will reverse grain unemployment rate. Of course, Nigerians can't wait. The writer says, economy to rebound in few months. Where are the numbers to support that position? Ondo, Ayedatiwa Agbola's camps bicker over campaign venue. Of course, we see that play out in the heat of campaign like this. That's when Igben governor is said to not allow opposition parties to use the stadium, to use some very, well, sensitive venues at this point in time. But I'm sure by this time on the 5th of November, elections will be underway in Ondo State. Of course, accreditation would have started. And of course, Trust Global Television, as always, to bring you all of the details from that all-important election. Let's take a quick break now. So here are numbers, population numbers, that is, around the world, and what it means for development, what it means for countries like Nigeria that is making efforts to drive growth in different critical sectors. After this break, we'll bring you more headlines from across our national dailies. Do stay with us, everyone.
The world's population surpassed 8 billion a couple of years ago. Today it stands at 8.2 billion. My name is Sarah Hertog, and I am part of a team of demographers that every 2 years revises the world population prospects to get an updated sense of the size of the world's population and how we expect it to grow and change over the coming decades. One of the key findings from our new report is that we do expect that the size of the world's population is going to peak within the current century. We estimate that it will reach that peak of about 10.3 billion people sometime probably around the 2080s. We know that the population at its peak is going to be larger than it is today, and it's going to be much older than it is today. The age structure will have shifted to older ages. What that means for our societies and the implications for sustainable development hinge on how well we plan for that larger and older world population today and in the coming years.
All right, thank you everyone for staying with us. Let's turn back to the papers now. Okay, the Nation newspaper is our next port of call, where you have several national issues as expected. All right, one again up here with a picture of Aliko Dangote. Dangote to begin crude oil production soon, but some report says 2025. Okay, stamp duty dispute court orders CBN to pay firm 579 billion naira. Those details are on page 5 of the Nation newspaper. All right, what's more, big story says autonomy anxiety in states over local government allocations. 4 riders we have with that story. Presidency committee meets this week on fiscal transition. Arsalan stone Ogun APC councillorship candidates to death. A very sad story, but we understand that investigations are on. Some persons have been taken into custody already. Okay, what else do we have? Osun LG workers panic over possible stoppage of allocations. No plans to rig Kaduna Council poll, says commission boss. Who knows, maybe that assurance is very important given what we have seen with the local government election exercises recently. Court rules on $2.045 million properties linked to Emefiele on November 1. Again, suspected headsman Q4 in Benue community. We saw pictures that were very gory yesterday about houses that were burnt. All right, of course, lives taken as well. You can read up that sad story on page 2 of the Nation Sunday. Let's see, like a few more headlines here. Paris Olympics fallouts blooming in adopted colors. Why Nigerian athletes are doing better. All right, that's a very interesting story. Why Nigerian athletes are doing better abroad. Experts cite death of school sports, misplaced priority, shortage of dedicated administrators, coaches, facilities for poor performances. Of course, times have changed. Also has been the case with commitment to sporting activities in recent years. Fani Kayode questions Israel's identity in new peace. That's the story you can find on page 25. Okay, today's Nation newspaper. But then we'll take you away from the Nation now to bring you the Tribune, which also has several national stories. Let's begin with the star story here on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune this Sunday. PDP internal battle rages. North Central leaders insist Damagun must go. 2 riders accompany that story. NAS caucus to meet Wednesday. Court's order not binding on party. That's according to member of House of Reps, Ugo Chinyere. On page 4, that's where we have those details. My biggest regret about Osinachi, Humble Smith. All right. Ekiti government expresses readiness to pay 70,000 naira minimum wage. And the writer tells us distributes 3.5 billion naira gratuity checks to retirees. Osun government urges FG's intervention in tax dispute with mining company. Claims company owes state multi-billion naira interests value. Read that up on page 18. Confession of serial killer who murdered over 5 persons and ready to die now, but all right, so that story has its details on page 9. Okay, let's take it above the main plate now. Hundreds of poultry farms shut down over a galloping price of petrol, naira devaluation. That's according to PAN, Poultry Association of Nigeria. NCDC raises alarm over surge in cases of Lassa fever in Ondo, Edo. The writer tells us, says they account for 68% of confirmed cases in 2024. That's quite a number of cases there, if you ask me. But then let's turn to the Vanguard newspaper for you. All right, on the front page of the Vanguard, we start with the story just above the name masts of it. It says academic transcripts how varsities fleece applicants raking billions. The writer says 4 varsities inspired establishment of Covenant University now ranks Nigeria's best. That's David Oyedepo there talking. You find it on page 6 of the Sunday Vanguard. All right, details of the headline here that says academic transcripts how varsities fleece applicants raking billions can be found on page 12 of the Sunday Vanguard as well. But the big story here is about 1,030 naira petrol price may go up again, experts warn. We have to be extremely careful when we push for a complete deregulation of PMS. That's Muda Yusuf, former boss of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. They're talking. All right, what else do we have? Tinubu's confab raises doubts that CSOs demand slots for protesters. Release all detained demonstrators now or exercise won't be credible. Okay, then we take it a bit further down. It says, Aiyedatiwa, Ondo government speaks on governor, viral video on domestic violence. The Michael Omolaye story. Sports gave me my first job in school. 5 fresh deaths rock uni math. Quite a pathetic story there on page 36 of the Sunday Vanguard. All right, so you can read all of that up. Of course, you have quite a number of columnists here put up their pieces on the Sunday Vanguard today for you to also read. All right, let's turn to our last but not least paper today. That happens to be the Sunday Times. Okay, first here says a lamentation for small business owners as fuel prices surge amid economic crisis. Governors plot against plans by NAS to grant full autonomy to local governments. One governor had said that, well, it's a good thing. Just when the Supreme Court delivered that verdict, that historic, landmark verdict, according to the governor at that time, he said, look, it's good readers to bad rubbish, so to speak, because the local government councils are a burden, extra baggage, so to say, or excess luggage, as they say in the aviation sector, all right, for the governors and state governments. But now, the irony of it all is that we see governors falling over themselves to ensure that local government councils do not enjoy full autonomy. So how do governors pay from both sides of their mouth? All right. So what do governors want from the local government? By the way, why don't you mind your business? Do your business and allow the local government councils to mind theirs. These are, this is a country where you have 3 tiers of government. You have the local, the federal, the state, and the local. So if we are saying that there are issues that are exclusive, all right, to state governments, why don't you allow the local governments to also mind their business and just allow development to trickle down to the least person in society and across communities, all right? Says governors plot against plans by NAS to grant full autonomy to local governments as stakeholders bemoan rots in states' electoral commissions. I think this is going to be the next fight for citizens and for critical stakeholders. So the issue of governors having a stranglehold on the states' independent electoral commissions, and then of course the chairman of these commissions, who apparently serve at the pleasure of the state governors. It's quite a sad development, but how do we fix it? Who's going to find the balls? Who's going to drive the framework to be able to address this problem? All right, let's see a few more headlines from today's the Sunday Times. All right, here it says how Nigeria's 7.6 trillion annual petrol generator spending fears environmental crisis. That's what we spend on petrol and of course generator, 7.6 trillion annually. And beyond the economic factor, we're not looking at the environmental element, all right, how it drives environmental crisis in this country. All right, what more do we have? Pathetic story of Franklin Okafor, mobbed, left to die over 250 naira transport fare. Correct to CGN, You can save judiciary from collapse, restore confidence in democracy. Of course, that goes without saying. All right. Mixed reactions trail mortuary tax introduced by Enugu government. What exactly does that even mean? Well, you can read up details for yourself if you pick up a copy of the Sunday Times today. And that's what we're leaving it with the papers, everyone. We're taking a quick break now. We're back shortly to wrap up the program for you to stay with us. Global Morning is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofwebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Getting on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
the Global Morning team.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bands, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business.
In recent times, there has been debates of some kind as to whether the EFCC should be scrapped or left to be. As a matter of fact, we understand there are at least 16 governors, of course, with their respective state governments in court now, whose prayer is for the court to declare the EFCC illegal. All right. Then, of course, more than ever before, we're now hearing people saying that, well, do we really need the EFCC to fight corruption? Has the EFCC been up and doing? Has it been rising to the occasion when the need arises and all of that? Of course, Global Television has covered many of these issues time and again. We've even had to discuss the EFCC from a legal standpoint, all right, on scale of justice, just to help bring some sort of 360-degree perspective to this very important narrative. But the question is EFCC a problem for Nigerians right now? Is the work of the EFCC, regardless of how it's rated or assessed, the reason Nigeria is not making progress or substantial progress in many critical areas? Is very important. Of course, there's a court case already right now that's been heard. But the thing is, should that be our priority? And what is the motive behind these more than a dozen governors now pushing for the EFCC to be declared illegal? But it will appear the governor of Adamawa State is not joining the fray, because he says the EFCC should be strengthened and not scrapped. All right. So if a sitting governor is saying that, it means there must be something the EFCC is doing right, or there's something the EFCC potentially can do right. But as a country, we must learn to set our priorities right. Yes, the EFCC was established in 2004. There's the EFCC Act of 2004. This is 2 decades down the line. While we have concerns around the operations of the EFCC, people have talked about how that the EFCC has a selective system. All right. People have talked about how that the EFCC is used by government at some point by politically exposed people as a hound dog. All right. People have talked about how that the EFCC is more focused on the so-called Yahoo boys than they should pay attention to those who fleece this country dry. We also cannot take away the fact that the EFCC has scored very high in some very important areas. Therefore, we can't afford to throw the baby and the bath water away. Every country on earth, every serious country, every country that wants to deal with issues around graft does have some EFCC equivalent, one way or another, with the same objective ultimately across Africa and beyond. Therefore, why don't we ask what more can be done to strengthen the EFCC, to beat the EFCC to line, so to speak, rather than wanting to scrap the agency? Well, that's food for thought, I suppose. But then it marks the end of Global Morning today. Thank you, everyone, for spending a part of your time with us. The program returns on Monday, full throttle, 3 hours with big conversations for you. I'm Uyag Mofwegbe. On behalf of my colleagues here at Global Television headquarters in Abuja, we say thank you for watching.